Did you know that over 40% of people who get released from prison end up right back behind bars within 3 years? That's right, recidivism. It's a huge issue and it plays a major role in the Wade Wilson case. But what happens when you throw mental health issues and a rough childhood into the mix? Could those things be the real reason why Wade's life spiraled the way it did? Today we're discussing Wade's story and breaking down how recidivism, mental health, and childhood upbringing might have shaped Wade's life, and let's be honest, we find it pretty perplexing. Well, hello Crime Squad. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, we take deep dives into true crime stories and uncover the layers that people tend to overlook. I'm super excited about today's episode, so be sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and most importantly, please subscribe just so that you don't miss anything in the future. And trust me, we've got some wild stuff coming up that you don't want to miss. All right, so let's jump into this. Wade Wilson, let's see, where did we begin? You know, this guy has been all over the headlines, and it's not just because of the crimes he's committed. His story is complicated, to say the least. Today, we're going to talk about 3 things that might have made Wade's situation turn out the way it did: mental health, recidivism, and his childhood upbringing. Now, because when we look closely, we start to see that this isn't just the story of a guy who completely went off the rails. Oh, it's so much deeper, more tangled. So, first things first, let's talk about recidivism. Now, you've probably heard that term thrown around, but just in case, recidivism basically means that someone who has been in prison goes back to prison after being released. And honestly, this is a huge problem in the criminal justice system in the United States. It's like a revolving door. People get out, but before they can even adjust to the life on the outside, they're right back in. And for some, it's almost like they're doomed from the moment they step out. Wade Wilson, for example, he's a textbook example of this. You see, before this high-profile case we all know him for, Wade was already tangled up in the system. He had been in and out of prison for various crimes, and it's like every time he got out, he found himself in trouble and getting right back in. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about it, it kind of feels like the system is setting people up to fail. I mean, you spend years in prison, cut off from society, and then they release you back into the world with no support or very little. It's like handing someone a map without any directions and expecting them to find their way around, you know? I need ways. The system basically gives you a good luck, hope you don't end up back in here, and sends you on your way. And for people like Wade, the odds of staying out of trouble are slim to none. It's like trying to diet when the refrigerator is full of cupcakes and temptation is everywhere. But here's where things start to get interesting. Wade's not just a guy who kept making bad choices. There's more to it. And that brings me to the next piece of the puzzle: mental health. Wade has a history of mental health struggles that have followed him for years. Now, I don't know if it's attributed to his use of controlled substances, but this isn't just speculation either. There's a documented pattern, and if you look closely enough, mental health problems in prison, oh boy, it's a recipe for disaster. So let's be real for a second, if you will, Crime Squad. The mental health care system in prison is basically non-existent. It's like putting a Band-Aid or a bullet wound, Band-Aid on a bullet wound and just calling it a day. That doesn't help at all. Now, these facilities are not equipped to handle the kind of deep-rooted mental issues that someone like Wade Wackalicious has. Instead of getting proper therapy or treatment, prisoners are often left to deal with their own demons on their own. It's really no wonder things escalate. And for Wade, whose mental health was already shaky, prison life probably made things 10 times worse. You ever heard the phrase, the mind is a terrible thing to waste, or the mind is a dangerous place? Yeah, imagine what it's like when you're stuck in a cell, day in and day out, with nothing but your own thoughts to keep you company. I can't imagine. I mean, it's scary. If you think about Wade's mental health struggles, they're pretty interesting. Wait until later in this video when we dive into the specific events from his childhood. That might have set the stage for all of this, so stick around because this story is just getting started. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about Wade's childhood. This is where we really get personal. You know, we hear about childhood trauma all the time, but for some reason, when it comes to criminals, people often focus on the crimes without looking at the root cause. And that's a huge mistake, especially in a case like this. Wade was born in 1994 and grew up in Tallahassee, Florida. But life wasn't easy for him from the start. And I'm making no excuses, just stating the facts. His biological parents were teens who couldn't care for him, so he was adopted. You might be thinking, well, adoption can be a good thing, right? And you'd be right in most cases. But for Wade, those early years of instability probably left scars that actually never healed. And even though he was taken into a loving family, you can't undo the effects of trauma that early on. I mean, psychologists will say that the first few years of a child's life are crucial for development. If things go wrong during that time, it can really create emotional and psychological issues that follow you into adulthood. And for Wade, growing up knowing that his birth parents couldn't care for him may have created deep-seated, rooted feelings of abandonment. And as we've seen time and time again, hurt people do what? Hurt people. And by the time Wade was a teenager, oh my, his behavior was already spiraling out of control. He started getting into trouble with the law, and then when the cycle of recidivism really kicked in, the first time he got arrested, he was barely out of high school. And from there, it just kept going downhill. It just kept going on. And it was almost like the system had him into like some grip and just wasn't letting go. He'd get out, fall into old patterns, and end up right back behind bars. So now we've got recidivism, we've got mental health issues, and childhood trauma all swirling around in Wade's story. But here's the big question. What could have been done differently? Now, could therapy have helped? Could an early intervention have stopped him from becoming the man we know today? Let me know what you think in the comments. I mean, I'm genuinely curious to hear your thoughts on this. Now, circling back to the mental health aspect for a second, there's something I want to touch on. Wade's time in prison wasn't just a downward spiral because of bad behavior or poor choices. His mental state clearly played a role. The stress, the isolation, and lack of proper care in prison environments only makes things worse. Now, it's like being stuck in a pressure cooker with no release valve. Wade isn't alone in this either. A huge number of inmates across the U.S. struggle with untreated mental health issues, and we're seeing the effects of this all the time. I mean, it's no wonder prisons are often referred to as warehouses for the mentally ill. And let's not forget the impact that the system has on families. Oh no, Wade's dad played a crucial role in turning him in. Imagine that for a second. being so afraid of what your child might do that you might feel like you have no choice but to hand them over to the authorities. It's heartbreaking. Watching the videos about this, truly heartbreaking. And in some way, Wade's dad did what he thought was right, hoping it would stop Wade from continuing down his violent path. I mean, it's tough to say what you would do in such a situation, but you have to wonder, was there another way? All right, Crime Squad. That's a deep dive into Wade Wilson's life and the factors that might have led him down the path he took. I mean, it's a complicated story, and it raises a lot of important questions about our justice system, mental health care, and how childhood trauma can shape a person's life. I mean, if you're interested in learning more about similar cases, check out our other videos. There's so much more here to explore, and we're honestly just getting started. Hey, before you go, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with a friend, and subscribe to the channel just to stay up on all of our future true crime deep dives. Your support really helps us keep this channel going, and we love hearing your thoughts in the comments. All right, well, thank you for hanging out with me today, and we'll see you in the next video. As always, Crime Squad, it is a joy and a privilege to bring you this Crime Squad coffee. That's it for today, but please drop down in the comments to connect with our Crime Squad community. And for anyone new here, please subscribe to the channel, give us a happy thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next video.